I see. You're like a one-trick pony with the intensity, but it works.
Yeah.
So I had said at the end of the last episode that we were going to have to bring you back very soon. So here we are. You're suited up this time. I'm a little afraid.
I've grown up clothes today, so
yeah, and you still have the like the ties like a little loose, like you're about to like.
Yeah, I'm done for the day, so I can let it go a little bit.
What were you doing up here besides?
I was in the city seeing a client.
Oh, okay. Client, foreign state. No.
I wish.
Okay, all right. They pay well.
They pay well.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, you had left us with some cliffhangers at the end of the last one, and actually right after we recorded, Tommy G, our mutual friend, put out one of the documentaries that features you, which was investigating the Epstein files in D.C. You were great in that. Tommy, as always, did a great job putting that together. But how did you get involved with knowing anything about those files, and what was the extent there? Yeah.
So in terms of the official DOJ files, I'm not seeing those. I'm not looking at those. When this Epstein case came into, got real sort of hit critical mass, and there was all this speculation. Like I'm a time in the thick of, location data and location intelligence and being able to have a look. I know the island. I know the penthouse. I have the seed locations. What does the data tell me? So in terms of it's the closest, the best way to describe it would be a probabilistic list, caveated with these are people these are devices that dwelled at the island. Now, who knows I don't know what they were doing there.
I'm sure they were just laying on the beach, Mike.
Yeah. It was a executive retreat, learning about leadership, and not commission. This was just curiosity because I could, and wanted to test some theories, and the reality is, despite these being some of the smartest people on the planet, who probably went through just looking at their travel patterns. They were trying to be a little evasive, but they carried the phones with them, the same phones they carry with them to work, to their kids' soccer games, and so it is a probabilistic social graph of people that were sort of in that orbit, or devices that were in that orbit.
When did you first decide, no, I'll take a look at this?
This is 2018.
Wow.
Early days, yeah.
Okay, so is this 2018? Are you referring to 2018 or 2019? It would have been right when he first got caught, or like it was before he got caught, which would be 2018.
Whenever it became critical, the critical volume, the critical mass of the
probably
story,
2019,
which would have piqued my interest.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where, okay, the feds are involved. If I'm asked, I want to be prepared to either say, I can assist, and I can assist in a way that, because these are U.S. persons, so no warrant. This is commercial data. So I was able to sort of jumpstart, or would have been able to jumpstart, if they wanted to start looking at names, assuming they didn't already have them. And I don't know if they have a list of names. We're told they do. It's on the Attorney General's desk, and then we're told there's nothing there to see.
Yeah, there's nothing that exists.
So there's and resolving identity to those patterns of life. Again, because we're talking about the U.S. and the openness of data, being able to correlate a bed down location where with a location where a device goes to work regularly, makes that a really not easy, but it's a more resolved identity resolution.
Now, how do you? I'm trying to picture this because I'm not at all an expert in what you did. But for people who didn't see the last episode, obviously you're going to fill in some blanks again today on some of the tactics you use. But you're effectively at a 30,000-foot view using publicly available cell data to be able to track devices and then cross-reference that with other publicly available data to be able to identify people and where they are. When you're talking about identifying people, let's say with the island, though, at the time that you were looking at it, when this is a critical mass, am I understanding correctly that you're looking at back data, meaning you could be looking as far back as 2011, 2012?
I only went back. I didn't go back that far. I didn't need to come up with a good dense list.
Wow. How far back did you go? Like a couple years?
Yeah, 2015.
Okay.
So I was, again, looking at recency, trying to get more recency. But so the process, so we know that something was going on at this island. That's my seed location. Then I'm going to look and see what devices were at that location and where were they before and where were they after.
So that would be able to explain, for example, let's not use names here, but, Schmill Schmates, if he were somewhere else with that phone in 2015, even if he's had two phones since then, you would be able to see based on, say, cross-referencing, I'm going to make up a number, 5 to 6 different places he might have been before that clearly that's him.
Yeah. So if we're talking about that archetype of character, I'm gonna see a device that's at the island, and then I'm gonna see devices or device patterns in and around the Seattle, Washington area.
Right.
There's a big foundation in downtown Seattle where that device might spend a lot of time, and start appending identity with probability. These are not facts because I'm not looking at this device identifier belongs to this name. I'm seeing the device sleep at this location, which through publicly available information, I can append a name. I see it, then I further filter it, and I see that device at places where it's likely that's where they work based upon publicly available information. So I'm sharpening that hypothesis as to who this device belongs to.
Right. But that's crazy to me that you would be looking at this and you'd be like, well, I don't need to go back farther than 2015 or 2016. 6-7 years after he is indicted and found guilty of, underage, well, it ended up being soliciting a prostitute, but, being a pedophile, let's call it what it is. And after there were already, without me having it in front of me, I know there were multiple lawsuits that had come up by that time as well that had been reported in the news, not as loudly as they should, but had been reported. Wouldn't it be very, very interesting that, say, some extremely powerful people would still have, I don't know, the nerve to go down to forget going to his townhouse, to go to the island. I don't even know if they went on the guy's jet. Either way, to go to that island at that point, how dumb do you have to be, or how blackmailed do you have to be?
So this may be the counterfactual associated with people that are really smart, is they think that they're too smart and can get away with it. I don't know. I don't know what goes into the mind. The psychology, I don't understand the draw, or maybe I do, and it's not that complex. But I think that there was, if you look at this cohort, they're people that have everything. They've got people telling them how great they are, how wonderful they are, tending to their every need. They snap their fingers. So, they probably have a mindset that they can they can do this and sort of be above the accountability. And if you think about it, it's my impetus to look into this was the noise really was about the embarrassment that it would cause some of these people. Like, yeah, embarrassment is the least of your worries.
Yeah.
But if that is all you are worried about, your public perception and it's a public relations crisis and I need my comms team to come in and help, that's the wrong problem to be focused on. And it was kind of a neat little project to see if I could do it with some degree of volume, where if it comes push to shove, where we need to put identity because we don't have a black book, but we need some leads, some investigative leads. But that call never came.
Never came to you?
Never came to me.
Okay. Let me try to piece some of this together. You are working on this now at least several years after you first began doing some contracts for the government with this type of work. You laid out that story last time. Pretty crazy, that whole thing, like potentially tracking Delta Force to Syria and being like, guys, anyone can do this. So now, the government's had you work on multiple different things, basically all different types of stuff as it comes up where your expertise could be used. And I'm picturing you right now, correct me if I'm wrong, once again, like doing this in your bedroom, like you talked about.
Yeah, the home office in between the master bedroom and my daughter's room.
Right.
Yeah.
So this whole Epstein story is coming out and you're like, I'm going to get this. And you go in and voluntarily say, all right, if called upon, let me see what I got. Now, you said the call never came. Did you tell, I assume, high-level people that you were working with?
People knew I had it. But I was in my folks were counterterror, and this was not counterterror.
It wasn't. I could see how it could get tied into that.
At the time, this was, again, early days.
Yes.
So looking deeply into, and that was one of the things I was like, why is he so involved in the limited?
Yeah, Les Wexner's company.
Yeah, because I just it wasn't the headline narrative at the time, and I'm and so unraveling that was fascinating.
So you unraveled the L Brands connection. Can you please?
Yeah, I mean he spent time at the headquarters of
Victoria's Secret,
the limited brand, the parent company that owns.
I got you. Okay, let me just Google limited brands, U.S.
There was a lot of dwell in Ohio.
Yeah, that was in. So their primary headquarters is in Columbus. Right. And then there's a neighborhood outside there whose name is eluding me right now. Epstein, Ohio neighborhood. Let me just get what it's called.
So
New Albany.
I came into this without any a priori knowledge about him, right? So again, it was like, that's interesting. What is the Ohio connection?
Yeah.
And so that became clear. And the people that he was associating with here in the States, again, as another filter, would also dwell with him on the island.
What types of people are we talking about there?
So these are CEOs, CEOs of studios, CEOs or publishers of major newspapers, media outlets, some entertainers, some religious folks.
Religious folks.
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
I don't know if I've really heard. I mean, there's so much on this case. Some goes in one ear, out the other. But
again, they may have just been there to well, they wouldn't have been doing mass, but
I was going to say, did he find Christ or something? Yeah. I must have missed that.
But this was not open access, public availability.
Yes.
These were, again, people who are public figures who would have a lot to lose. And it's compelling enough where I was kind of like, yeah, they'll get this. This is too easy to make public, to even just issue press like we're investigating these people. We're not accusing them of anything, but they were at the island. So maybe they should explain themselves.
Yeah. I've had a guy sitting in that seat who was at the island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is the what do we want to call them? The victims. Segmenting the people on the island. So a lot of staff, cooks, maids, bartenders, and the victims, and understanding how that cohort segmented both on the island and back in the States.
What do you mean by that?
Just the number of people who, in addition to the victims, who were employed.
Got it.
Groundskeepers, et cetera.
So separating them from the victims themselves.
Yep.
Got
Yep.
it. Okay.
And from the clients, from
whatever
the visitors. Yeah.
Yeah. Clients. Certainly a good word.
So lots of investigative leads, a lot of witnesses. What did you see and when did you see it and who did you see?
Yeah.
And lots of people to be able to interview.
You know what's funny? In all the years of looking at this case, I don't think I've ever heard, when it comes to the island, about, people reporting on it referring to, say, bartenders, waitresses, or maids or stuff like that. Now, guys I have heard are, guys working on the power lines, groundskeepers, normal stuff that, would be on any property, let alone a private island. But, that's interesting because you think of, a bartender or a maid. These are, they're covering the most personal interactions and stuff, meaning they're seeing everyone, and they have to have, at some point, they have to have some idea that,
something's not right.
Something's not right here. So you were also, as you pointed out, you're segmenting those people to kind of put them in their own bucket.
Like the bartender. So again, I should say probabilistic, but, I see that device working at clubs, at other islands or other resorts, exhibiting a pattern of life that's typical of somebody who's working late night, not during the day, but dwelling at resort properties and then club-like facilities where they would be working as a bartender.
The people who are coming onto the island working there, let's separate the groundskeepers and stuff like that, who I assume are from one of the very local places right there. But when we're talking bartenders, when we're talking even maids or management of any kind, were these people also from the Caribbean area there nearby? Or were there? Or
they were, they would work, they would have, I'm working this place tonight. I'm here on this job for a week.
Okay.
But they would have their sort of regular job, but they would spend time on the island, again, correlated with visitors.
Right. Okay.
So they weren't just hanging out when we didn't have any of our high profile people there. They were off doing their other jobs.
Point being, it's not someone sketchy. You're not seeing a lot of sketchy people from flying in from Eastern Europe for this, or flying in from New York for this, or okay.
No.
All right. So that part, it seems like
this be, sort of the professional house staff.
Yes. He had the part a little bit more,
Yep.
I guess, covered for the window dressing in that department.
Yeah. Or he wanted to, he wanted to have proper, somebody who knows how to make a drink, right? Or
but they're not spies.
No.
Right.
No.
Okay. All right. There's a lot. I have so many questions on this.
And it's it's kind of so there's a lot to unpack with this, but it's I think about it today, and we got three administrations if you count Trump's administration twice. The Department of Justice is responsible for prosecuting. We've had three administrations. All three have sort of exhibited the same outlook about it. I don't know what to read into that, other than there isn't anything for us to prosecute against, so we've moved on. But it's like where does the investigation go from here? Because you don't have a U.S. attorney, you don't have the attorney general, you don't have a prosecutor pursuing a case, investigating. I don't know where to go with it.
It's obviously a cover-up, and I will say the thing. The 500-pound elephant in the room is Trump, because he's in office and he knew this guy.
Yep.
Now, the first thing in his defense is that this guy, unfortunately, knew fucking everyone in New York.
Yep.
He just did. It's a fact of the matter. And we've said it a million times in different contexts on this show when it comes up, but all he had to do, and all Ghislaine had to do, was take a picture with you. There's that famous picture of Elon Musk walking by where clearly he's walking with his drink and the photographer goes, "Sir," and he kind of turns like this, and Ghislaine just finds her way right here. It's probably completely innocent.
Yep.
But there's that 0.001% that for the rest of his life he's going to have to answer a question about that.
Yep.
Some of the academics who, the guy I had sitting in that chair who's down at the island was Lawrence Krauss, who's an academic. And all these guys are going to have to answer those questions forever. When I will say this about Lawrence, he was as blunt about it as you will ever get. He's like, "I'm a scientist. We need funding." The guy brought funding. At the time, we thought he was good. And he brought funding, and that's what it was.
Yep.
And I'd like to believe him. You know what I mean? But there's always going to be that small question, whether it's him or Steven Pinker or any of these guys, just because of how he would get into proximity to people. So I have to give Trump the same, I guess, understanding with that. However,
what's interesting about that?
Yeah,
what you just said?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the character that you referred to that may be resident in the Seattle area, who has a big foundation.
Yeah.
That foundation has a intelligence arm, a security arm, mostly to vet grant seekers. Are they a charlatan? Are they full of shit? But they do vetting that's pretty exhaustive, pretty extensive. And they're also responsible for protecting the individual and another really rich guy that lives in Omaha, Nebraska. Warren Buffett.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
I thought you were.
You can say Schmar and Muffet, but yeah.
But so in terms of, the foundation would have vetted Epstein's file and would have advised their principal to avoid him based upon the whole portfolio, the whole envelope of everything that he had been involved with. But that didn't matter.
Do you know the name of that company?
Which company?
The security company?
It's part of it is they are part of the foundation.
Okay, so it's completely internalized.
Yeah.
I mean, it's under the umbrella. It's not part of the foundation hired on a contract basis.
Yep. No, this is one of their entities that does due diligence on, mostly due diligence on people who are applying for funding.
Got it. What's their origin? Are these like U.S. former intel guys?
Some, yeah, some. I mean, and it's mostly open source type research, and they do a lot of his physical security. So if there's a threat against him, you get somebody who's going crazy on social media that, he needs to go. He's the devil. He's vaccinating. He's doing all of this stuff. They're watching those voices on social media and informing his protective detail.
Like the Secret Service watches a president.
Precisely.
Okay.
Yep. Same methods. A lot of the same tools.
Yeah.
Any package that would arrive at the foundation. And he gets some crazy stuff.
I'm sure.
So I interrupted you because you were talking about
Trump.
How these there's no way that any of these guys who have these public profiles, who have security people, somebody would have said,
right.
I can't tell you what to do, boss, but understand that this is what we know about this guy.
Yep. All right. Well, I always do my best to give the full picture, and I think you have to do the same thing with Trump for sure. But there's multiple things going on here. In his defense, that you still have to say it is pretty verified 6 ways to Sunday that at least since like 04-ish, 05-ish, he ceased all contact with Jeffrey Epstein and didn't deal with him. Now, there's been rumors that was because Epstein came onto a 15-year-old towel hand at Mar-a-Lago, which it does appear that is true, that he did do that. The other thing that was reported, though, and I believe it was Tara Palmieri in her podcast she did on this back in 2020, I want to say. The other thing that was reported through, I think it was Brad Edwards who said this, the lawyer for a lot of the victims, is that Trump and Epstein both wanted the same piece of real estate or something in Palm Beach.
I think it was, there was some, he was making a run at some property or something.
Right. And Trump won, and they're both kind of egomaniacs, so they just didn't talk after that and didn't like each other. I don't care why you don't talk to the guy. Like, if you're not talking to the guy, I appreciate that you're not fucking talking to the guy.
Yeah.
But Trump, one of the things Brad Edwards said is that all of the powerful people that he reached out to in 08, 07, 08, and he reached out to all of them told him to fuck off, except Donald Trump. And he went and interviewed Donald Trump by the pool, I think at Mar-a-Lago or something, and Trump talked about this guy for a long time, which is very, very interesting. And I say all that because we know he was friends with him for a lot of years. We know that people like Maria Farmer have been ignored when she talked about working the front desk at Epstein's office in the 90s and Trump coming in there fucking 3-4 times a week. People don't like when she gives that testimony. They love it when she gives the Clinton testimony and all the other testimonies, but not that one. And, there's definitely some creepy videos and some creepy things going on. The part that has really, really stuck something in my craw, though, is the developments this year under his Justice Department and his reaction to it. One thing we know about Donald Trump is that when it comes to polls on issues, the guy knows every fucking poll. He knows where the pulse of the people is on certain things. That's, I think, a large reason why he's been so effective over the last 11 years at winning elections and winning on issues, because he's like, okay, 54% of Americans are pissed about this. That's my issue. Yep. Let's dig into it. Yet when it comes to the Epstein thing, it is the one thing that he appears to be as blind as a fucking bat on. And he goes out of his way to, he started trying to say it was like a Democrat hoax or something. And mind you, this is a guy who had like Bill Clinton in his back pocket. So that's definitely not the case. Right. And so like, what do you make of all that, considering the fact that he did have inextricable links to him, considering the fact that his original AG when Epstein died was, the son of the man who gave Epstein his first start, when you consider the fact that there's all these weird connections pointing back to him, Alex Acosta, the whole bit, what do you make of Donald Trump's reaction this year trying to say that, like, oh, there are no Epstein files?
This is pure conjecture. I think that let's look at it. Let's say there's content there, and because the behavior of the FBI director and the attorney general, it was like a 180, right, from where they were to where they ended up. So what happened in that intervening period of time? Did they see something where, and it spans across this archetype of influencers, shakers, movers in the United States that would tear at the fabric of our society, and they're doing us, they're protecting us, which I think is insulting.
Yeah.
So that's one scenario. The other scenario is there's nothing there to prosecute.
How would there be nothing to prosecute? Especially when there's someone like you, for example, who can use open source intelligence, meaning you don't need a warrant. It is available to the public to be able to say, there's a victim, there's a bartender, there's a dude down there, there's a victim and a dude down there going to a bedroom. That victim's 14 years old. Here's the timestamp and date. Yeah.
So my analysis would be impeached and attacked, and defense counsel would, say, this isn't a certified sworn law enforcement officer. This is not evidence. It's clues and leads. They would have to go and take my tips and develop prosecutable evidence, because location data is, again, it's a probabilistic assessment. So
yes.
So I could point them in the right direction, assuming that they needed me to do that. But you also have victim statements that have been deposed.
Yes.
By prosecutors. So I don't. Your question was, what do I make of it? I don't. There's one of two scenarios, and that's they're protecting us from what we can't handle, or everybody's looked at it and said there's nothing that we can't secure indictments on what we have. I don't know.
Did you see Kash Patel on Joe Rogan back in June?
Was that his his mea culpa, or was that So
that was when he talked about Epstein.
Yeah.
So that was quintessential.
Bro, trust me.
Like literally, like that was quintessential.
If you do a semantic analysis of Kash when he was, I don't know if he had been nominated. Yeah, I think he had been nominated, and he went on Rogan with his big Kash.
It would have been so much. He probably went on Sean Ryan shortly before being nominated. Rogan was when he was already in.
Okay. So there was Rogan when he went to basically go do here's what we have on Epstein as the FBI director. And then he was on Rogan.
I think he was only on there once. It was in June.
Okay. You do a semantic analysis of the Kash before and the Kash after.
I'm going to bury the Hoover building and turn it into a museum.
It's the guy is on his back foot. And what do you make of that? And the attorney general is on her back foot too. I think that they are trying to manage a narrative that they don't believe.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's true, but I suspect that is true. And there's a part of me that says, well, first, I'd love to be a fly on the wall to see the people that have talked to them and what the nature of those conversations is, to see how bad it is. And secondly, a part of me does go, what power do they really have? Yeah. Which is a sad, low bar. But, when he went on there with Joe, though, this was the part that I don't think is defensible, right? It's one thing if you're being forced through very dark forces to not be able to say what you want to say because worse things are going to happen because of those dark forces. It's a whole nother thing when you don't know the fucking case. And there was about a 12-minute segment there with Joe Rogan that was just quintessential classic Joe Rogan, like why he's the GOAT, where he just buried Kash or let Kash bury himself like a childhood dead hamster. I mean, it was like horrible in the sense that Cash revealed multiple times in there that he didn't even know some of the basics of the case.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
you're the head of the FBI. You went in there screaming that everything in there is a conspiracy or whatever, and you're going to get to the bottom of it. It doesn't help that you got one eye hunting and one eye fishing. I'm already not like inclined to trust you just looking at that. No offense.
Yeah.
But like, then you go in there and you don't even know where the cameras were on or how long they were allegedly on or where the whole background and detail on the staff at the prison when he allegedly killed himself and the whole bit. It's like, dude, you got to give me more than that.
Yeah. Either that or he knows, and it's easier to claim, to be ignorant.
I guess.
But I guess if you've sworn to take an oath and you're being pressured, coerced, isn't that when you resign and say, I can't in good faith execute?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a fair point.
I'm not being Pollyannish about it. Like, you have to make decisions
Yeah.
all the time that are hard. But for something like this, if we do have a situation where a group of people got around a table and said, here's how we need to manage this story and control it, and you two are going to have to go out and take the arrows. I mean, within 6 months, you're asking me to violate my oath. You're the FBI director. If there's information that gives you probable cause to investigate a crime, you don't get to decide whether you should do it or not.
Now, not to get really dark here, but to get really dark, what if they come to you and say, you like your mom, you like your girlfriend, you like your brother? You want them to live a long, healthy life? I mean, I hate to be that guy, but that shit does happen sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I haven't rushed out, a Substack post with pictures and graphics and, because this is a law enforcement. This is a real thing. It's not a marketing. Somebody did do that, where they got a data set, and they wrote a story. It was pretty inconclusive, and there were no names named. But to your point, this is a matter for people that have badges to seek warrants and investigate.
Right.
Not citizen sleuths to hold them accountable and do their job for them. And so, whether it's dark forces, you start naming names and you expose yourself to all sorts of legal matters that it's not it's the responsibility of law enforcement to hold people accountable to the law. If they're not going to do it.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
You're sitting on you're sitting on this device. You're not sticking anything up it's only, they're up your ass, no doubt. Metaphorically.
Yeah, you got to watch your words around here.
But yeah, there's a I don't know how it's configured, but it's basically, monitoring your reactions by virtue of, tightening your ass.
I know, but like, what if you had like beans for lunch or something? You just got to take a shit. They're like, you're lying.
Yeah, you might, or you have to tell them. But yeah, and you're sitting there as they're, looking at you through the glass, and you're like, okay, do I look like I'm evading? Do I look cool, calm?
You would look like you're evading all the time just because you look pissed off, like you're ready to get to your next project and whoever's in front of you is wasting your time. Like, I feel like that wouldn't change if you went into a polygraph. You'd be like, oh, God damn it, fuck.
It's one of the most, it's designed to be that way because they need to elicit. But in my first one, I got into it with the guy to the point where, he's like, You're not in control.
You're like, I'm not passing.
And I'm like, I'm not. I didn't like apply. I was asked to be here. I'm doing you a favor. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm not here because I filled out an application. Anyway.
All right. Well, let's get back into where we left off with the Epstein stuff. So, come a little bit this way if you would.
Yep.
Perfect. So, the part about you being, I want to go back to the part about you being able to track where a phone goes or something like that. And, like the example I gave, okay, person, bartender, person looks like victim. Here's how you track that with all this backdated. Person looks like, person that's going to take advantage of the victim. Here's how you backed all that data. Victim and person leave, go to what's clearly a bedroom unit, stay there both on top of each other for, 2 hours, one can assume. When you then would mix that with depositions taken from victims, I would imagine that is quite a compelling case if a prosecutor wanted to give it. So if you have that type of information, I don't understand how they could ignore that.
Yeah, I think it's so the rules of this goes into rules of evidence, and is that location data evidence of anything? Can you prove that the location of that device is actually the device of the person you are claiming it to belong to? And this gets into a lot of the there are a lot of commercial companies that do really good things, that can do a lot of good things. And in a lot of cases, they develop, information, and they're looking for somebody to be able to action it who can conduct inherently governmental functions. They go knock on somebody's door. They do an inherently, the job, the tasks that we want somebody who has a badge, who knows how to do these things. When you have freelance OSINTers, open source, and the freelancers are really good because they're clever. That breaks down in the rules of evidence because it wasn't conducted on a government computer by a certified investigator. Were the rights, did the rights of the accused, were they violated? Because
how would they be violated if it's open?
Well, this gets into a lot of the confusion within the government, particularly within law enforcement, about where does the Fourth Amendment apply when it's commercially available. Open source is a different story. Commercially available, where you had to go and purchase or acquire, specific data sets. Carpenter sort of resolved those issues, but it's still very easy for defense to attack the provenance of the information. How did you get this lead? How did you know to go knock on this person's door? If it's not following that chain of custody, that rule of evidence, it's difficult to keep that from being suppressed.
Couldn't it be redone, though? That's the thing. The data's there. So let's say you were imperfect. Let's say you, Mike, were...
Put it to you this way. The federal law enforcement agencies have these tools, these systems, these data sets. They could do it.
Redo it.
They could do it on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Because it's all there. Their phones were already there.
Yep.
The data's available.
The historical take is there. So
So if a convicted felon was the one who gathered it from their bedroom or something, they're like, well, that's not going to play well in court. Then agent so-and-so could do it. And again, I want to make the distinction here. Like if you look, one case I'm thinking about, for example, is the Silk Road case with Ross Ulbricht, who obviously was pardoned and is no longer in prison after giving a double life sentence, which that whole thing's crazy. But the way they even got to him was actually illegal. The FBI hacked into a server in Iceland completely illegally and broke the Fourth Amendment, and that was just conveniently ignored. I get that. But like what's not illegal, for example, is you'll see the FBI or police departments solve cold cases by there was one example I'm thinking of. They followed a guy to the Philadelphia International Airport 2 years ago and waited for him to have a coffee, finish it, and throw it out, and went into the trash, which is publicly available, took it out, DNA tested it, and they solved a 30-year-old murder.
I'm sure they had a warrant to do that.
They did not.
They did not have a warrant.
They did not. Let's double check that. It was the case in PA, Dave Spilatra, Dave cold case, PA airport. Yeah, it was Dave Sinopoli. I'm going to read this straight from CBS News so that people understand the context. But Lancaster police arrested 68-year-old David Sinopoli for the alleged 1975 murder of a 19-year-old woman on Sunday morning. He had been identified through a DNA sample obtained from a coffee cup at the Philadelphia International Airport. Let me skip down to where they got. On February 11, 2022, investigators obtained DNA from Sinopoli from a coffee cup he used and threw it into a trash can before traveling at the Philadelphia International Airport. The coffee cup was then submitted to DNA Labs International for testing. It was determined that the DNA on the coffee cup contained a mixture of DNA with one male contributor. Additional blood samples from the 1975 crime scene further matched the DNA sample from the coffee cup. Now, it doesn't say it explicitly right there, but I'm 99% sure they did not have a warrant for this.
Yeah, so if I suppose it'd be an interesting case file. If they wanted a DNA sample and they would have brought him in and asked him to submit to a DNA sample. So it'd be interesting to see what the logic was behind surreptitiously acquiring the DNA sample.
Because here's the thing, trash is public. Once he throws it into a public trash can,
and if that's how they argued it and didn't have that evidence suppressed because we just went dumpster diving and
you use public. This is what I'm saying, and this is also what's scary about this stuff. In this case, it's a good context because we're trying to solve a horrible thing. But you could see where this gets a little scary just because people don't realize the data they're giving up. But when I press accept on something, I am now putting myself in a position to where things like that could get tracked and later used publicly and openly by someone else in their bedroom because I said yes.
Yeah, or through about a month ago, it was revealed to members of Congress that the Durham investigation had subpoenaed cell phone data relating to the special counsel.
Yeah.
And Lindsey Graham, big supporter of the Patriot Act. Oh. Josh Hawley, big supporter of the Patriot Act. A bunch of others were their records, their cell phone data was collected through the intercept methodologies and the FISA court that they all support. And when they found out, their righteous indignation that how dare you.
Rules for thee, not for me.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Lindsey Graham's.
And these are particularly Lindsey Graham is the big, you've got nothing to hide. What are you worried about? You're not a terrorist. What are you worried about? Every camera he rushed to support the Patriot Act was bolstered with this. We're looking for terrorists. You're not a terrorist. You have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Okay. So fast forward, to a period of time in 10 years where things have gone really high and right, and there's an administration that wants to understand all of the cohorts that are freedom, Second Amendment, pick your political bent, And we want to start tracking them because we have the historical data and we can couch it into all sorts of righteous means, or we don't even need to. We have the capability, so we can do it. So, senators, you telling us that we should accept all of these surveillance capabilities and methods because we've got nothing to hide. It's not about we've got nothing to hide. It's you don't have the right.
Yeah.
Even if I have nothing to hide.
Yeah, the road to hell is paved with alleged good intentions.
Yeah, it's the counterfactual. All those that are, delivering something through the guise of kindness and virtue.
Yes.
Are most susceptible to evil.
Yeah.
And so it was an interesting to see them really losing their minds with Dan Bongino, who was informing them of this, and they had hearings about it. And these are the same guys who told us, hey, if you've got nothing to hide, what are you worried about?
No, that's the guy I'm watching. Yeah. Dan Bongino. Because he was this very partisan, conservative, firebrand commentator, had all these big opinions on stuff, always looked like the vein in his forehead was going to pop and cause an aneurysm.
Yep.
And I would say that now the vein looks even bigger for an entirely different reason. Every time I see that guy talk, it is like he is holding in all the trauma of a nation's history. And that dam wants to break, but isn't breaking. I do not see that same type of like dam on Cash or on what's her face? The
Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi.
Yep.
I do not see that same thing. Bongino looks like he is in pain.
Yeah.
When he is doing some of these appearances and whatever. So I am very much interested to see if at some point that will break. That said, I have had, I believe now it's 4 different people, but 3 prior to last April, meaning like in the year before this past April, stand out there from different contexts, totally different walks of life, but people who are in the know on certain things and assure me that we would never see the Epstein files, which, I wasn't surprised, but what they said to me was off record, but they all gave the same answer as to why. And when I see, it was a very broad answer, but I was like, yep. And now when I see the way that the backtracking has happened, to bring some of this back into English so that people can at least understand without me saying specifically anything that they said. When you're talking about a situation where people who are currently in a government fear that something this deep and this widespread would crash the entire system, forget just the government, because once people had literal confirmation of everything that they're totally suspicious about, but once it was there on the page and literally confirmed, there could be some sort of enormous civil uprising. And, and now we're getting to really big terms here and stuff, but stuff in the country that would be quite unpopular. And I want to know. I'm a citizen. I have a right to know. When I look at that, though, and I listen to some of these people who all also want to know as well and want the public to know, I see where the conundrum is, at least for something like this. So I bring this back to you, because you're looking at it from the outside and you are at least able to, paint on a page like, whoa, 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 look at that, look at that, look at that. When you first heard about this case, obviously it was very dark and you're like, oh my God. And you're like, wow, this guy knew a lot of people. But then when you first start actually working on it and you start to see the data popping up and you're seeing it's in years after he's convicted and you're seeing the types of people it is. Did you have a moment where you were just like,
didn't see that coming, or 100%. And that's, I think the risk is there needs to be this faith or foundational belief or belief in our systems that we have good people who do the right thing and don't need, they know what the right thing is. As I'm sort of developing this list, there were moments where I was like, this is this doesn't make sense. I must be wrong.
You must be wrong.
Yeah. Because my cognitive dissonance was, he wouldn't do something like that. He wouldn't be affiliated with this guy because I have this bias that was running contrary to what the data was saying.
But then the data starts painting a story.
I'm back testing it, and I got to make sure. Use other data sets. Is it the same? Is it this? Am I seeing the same thing? In the data, a multi-decimal latitudinal and longitudinal coordinate does not lie.
Yeah. Did you get mad?
I think that was one of them. That's one of those inflection points where you start listening to people and you're like, you're full of shit. Yeah. But what's, I think, the more troubling aspect of this is I don't think they're really afraid of going to jail. I think they're more concerned about their public image. Which, what does that say about someone's character?
I think there's also a lot of people who forget just their public image. What's the underlying cause there that it's tied to? They enjoy the power they have going into rooms anywhere.
Yep.
And they know that if they lose the public image, they will lose.
So too goes the power. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so it comes back to basic human, desire, greed, the whole bit. I don't mean to oversimplify it, but I think there's a lot of that. And also, the number in a first world country like America, this would not be true in some other countries around the world, sadly. But in a country like this, I'm happy to see it true that if there's one thing there's no coming back from, it's fucking a kid or doing, being a pedophile. It's like the lowest thing
there's no,
you can possibly be.
There's no Charlie Sheen, rehab tour.
Right. I was thinking.
Well, just look at the number of people who told us for years that President Biden has never been sharper, never been more on top of the game, who clearly, that you're not, that's not the case. You see it every day, but to call it out, put your place in the West Wing in jeopardy. So you're gonna perpetuate that narrative and toe the line.
Yeah, and I also think when you have threats behind the scenes, that has to be taken into account for sure. With this guy, it's very hard for me to not see him being tied to Mossad. Because there are it's like, how many touch points do you need before it's like, okay, this is just kind of what it is. That said, I also think that at some point along the way, of course, and if you were, my educated guess would be this probably was the late 90s. I think that our intelligence services figured out who he was for sure and realized that because of some of the compromise that he had built up, they were not, as crazy as this sounds, just hear me out on this, people, they were not in a position to full stop it, which is bizarre, but I could see where that argument comes in from an intelligence perspective. And I think what they probably did is said, you're going to pay a tax, pal. I think they probably went to him and said, we know who you are. We know what you're doing. Fuck you. This is horrible. That we know that we can't stop it because of some other things and some things that you've done. So that being said, it's like when a bunch of people are holding a gun to each other in a standoff. It's like, You're going to pay a 10% tax now. You're getting this information. We want to know some of it.
Yep.
And I think that also is a part of the reason. And again, this is all a hypothesis, educated guess. I don't know any of this, but I think that's also some of the reason that there is a covering of tracks, because at some point, it's not like he was a guy that CIA had cultivated, but he was probably a guy that they got some intelligence from. And it's like, well, are you going to admit that a dude who was sex trafficking at the darkest, worst, highest levels on your own fucking property was someone that you went to and technically allowed for this to happen?
Yep. Yeah. There are if you work in the field, you are going to have to be able to work with people that you find despicable.
Yes.
It's just, you're not there to make friends. You are there to extract intelligence. And some of the people that have actionable, valuable intelligence are terrible.
Yes.
So there's some reality to the business. But I think that this is where maybe they thought they could control him, keep the narrative tight. And he goes and gets himself arrested. And then you have a U.S. attorney saying there's nothing here. He's linked to intelligence, and we're not pressing the issue.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.